Hello and welcome to the Al Monitor Brief. It's Tuesday, July 30th. I'm Kristen Tallman. Today's main segment is a conversation with Adam Lucente, Al Monitor's news and business correspondent, on how Middle East and North Africa athletes are showing up at the Paris 2024 Olympics and what other segments and gold and silver and bronze medals you should be looking out for that could be won by athletes from across the region. But before we dive in, let's get you caught up on the headlines. Tunisia has kicked off candidacy submissions for its upcoming presidential election on October 6th, amid what experts say are significant constraints on hopeful, challenging incumbent President Said. For months, Israel has vowed to put an end to the frequent cross-border fire from Hezbollah, which has led authorities to evacuate tens of thousands of citizens from areas near the border with Lebanon. But the situation has grown more tense this week following a rocket strike on the Israeli-annexed Golan Heights, which killed 12 children, raising fears of further escalation in Israel's conflict with Hezbollah. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned that Israel will deliver a severe blow to Hezbollah, although the details for any plans for a military response to Saturday's attack in the Druze Arab town remain unknown. But the region is on pins and needles, especially those in Lebanon, waiting to see what Israel will do. Turkey's relations with Israel, rocky at the best of times, continued to nosedive as Israel's foreign minister, Israel Katz, called on NATO to expel Turkey. The call came following threats from Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of intervening militarily against Israel. Britain's Labour government outlined its priorities on Monday for new trade deals with Gulf countries, Israel, and Turkey being high on the agenda. It follows a pause for the UK's general election, which took place on July 4th, where Labour won a landslide election victory, ousting the Conservative Party that had been in power for 13 years. But it will be interesting to see which of the countries the new Labour government decides to expand trade with. The Israeli military said Monday 9 soldiers were being held in a case of suspected abuse of a Palestinian detainee at a facility holding Palestinians arrested from Gaza during the war. Israeli civilians and far-right members protested outside a military base where the 9 soldiers were being held, while several others, also in an attempt to show support, broke into a detention facility where the alleged abuse occurred. The military opened an investigation into the suspected abuse of a detainee at the Said Taiman base set up for holding Palestinians arrested in Gaza. And Turkey's parliament passed early Tuesday local time a controversial bill aimed at regulating stray dogs, sparking fears that a mass culling of the country's millions of street canines may be imminent and raising concerns from government critics about increasing pressure on opposition municipalities to implement the blow. Now, on to the main segment. Hey, Adam, welcome to the Al Monitor Brief.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Adam, it's been a few days since the Olympics officially kicked off on Friday, and it always amazes me how fast these go because people have already won gold medal. What does the medal count look like thus far for Middle East and North Africa countries?
Yeah, so a few countries from the region have won medals so far. Turkey won the bronze in the men's team archery. And then Egypt, there, Mohamed Sayed, he won bronze in one of the fencing events. And then also the Tunisian Faris Ferjani, he won silver in another fencing event, narrowly missing out on the gold. It's still early. There could be more victories, but that's what we have so far for the region.
Yeah, and it's crazy how many events are going on at one time. It's so hard to keep track. You tune in for the ones that you like, and then meanwhile, there's other golds being won. What are some of the most well-known athletes from the region that we should be looking out for?
There's quite a few. I mean, I'll mention some of them. In the men's soccer, there's a lot of big matches coming up on Tuesday. Egypt and Spain will play each other. Egypt, of course, is without Mohamed Salah, who wasn't able to go to the Olympics, wasn't released from his team in the English Premier League. So that was disappointing for Egypt, but they will play Spain. The same day, Morocco will face Iraq in the men's soccer, and then Israel will face Japan. Another team to watch is the Turkey women's volleyball team. They won their first match in the preliminary rounds against the Netherlands. And they've received a lot of media attention in Turkey, and they're led by one of the top players in the sport, the Cuban-born Melissa Teresa Vargas, who qualifies for Turkey based on residency. A few others, Benjamin Hassan for Lebanon. He won Lebanon's first ever tennis victory at the Olympics on Sunday, and he'll play in the second round on Monday. And the last thing I'd like to point out is, the Olympics for several Olympics now has had a refugees team, and there's a huge presence from the Middle East and North Africa on this team. Mostly, there's 14 Iranian athletes, or Iranian-born rather, athletes on the refugees team, and also 5 people from Syria playing for the refugees team. And that kind of just speaks to what those countries are going through.
Okay, that really segues us well into what I really want to ask you about, which is the Olympics. Even though the IOC says that they're apolitical, they are inherently a political event. And there's these countries competing for medals, and there's a grand show of who gets the most medals and whatnot. But there's been a lot of focus on the Israeli team for historical reasons, and then the Palestinian team, and as you mentioned, the refugee team. Talk to me a little bit about some of what the threats to Israelis have been, what the Palestinian team has done, and just what other countries in the region, how they have shown up at the Olympics, and how some of the geopolitical angles have been drawn out.
Yeah, so the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Gaza war is very much a part of the Olympics, whether the organizers try to prevent that or not. The Israeli athletes have been given 24/7 security because of threats they've received amid the war. Obviously, there's the legacy of Munich, and the Olympics want people to be safe. Another interesting thing that happened is one of the Palestinian boxers, he wore a shirt at the opening ceremony showing children being bombed. And of course, this is a reference to Gaza and in solidarity with the children there. Israeli media reported that Israeli athletes were denied the right, however, to wear shirts with yellow ribbons for the hostages. So that led to some controversy in Israel. Another thing that happened related to this is an Algerian judoka, a judo practitioner. He missed his weight before a match against an Israeli opponent, and now the International Judo Federation is investigating that. And there's been many past incidents of that, especially in judo, because it's so popular in the Middle East and North Africa. There's been incidents where athletes from the region will, drop out instead of facing an Israeli. And it's important to note that isn't necessarily the athlete's decision. It could be pressure from their governing bodies. However, the Judo Federation, they don't want any politics in sports, and that's why they're investigating that. So the Gaza war is very much part of this Olympics.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And how many more days do we have to go? And is there any specific events that we should tune into?
I would definitely keep an eye on the Turkish women's volleyball, like I said, and also the soccer. I mean, Egypt has a strong team. Iraq has a player, Ali Jassim, who's only very young, but he's playing very well. I would pay attention to those two.
Okay, Adam, thank you so much for bringing us up to the minute.
Thank you.
That's it for today, July 30th. You can read all these stories and more at allmonitor.com.